Hello everyone, welcome to K Diagnostics, Dio here. Today we have a 2000 Chevy Silverado with a 5.3 liter. The complaint on this truck is that the check engine light flashes, and the customer also said that when the check engine light started to flash, the vehicle started losing power and it was running very poorly. So when he called me to tell me that, I told him when you have a check engine light flashing, that's an indication of a misfire. It means your engine is misfiring. I told him not to drive it as much. If he could, he should drive it straight to the shop. And he did that. He drove it straight to the shop. Now here we are. So we're gonna go inside the truck and confirm the complaint first. We will start it and see the check engine light. Hopefully it's gonna flash while we have it here. And then we're gonna connect a scan tool to see what kind of trouble codes we have in memory. I mean, I can already tell by the way it runs. It runs very poorly, it's misfiring, but we're still gonna confirm it. We're gonna connect the scan tool and then we'll go from there. Before we do that, I wanted to thank all of you guys for supporting the channel. The channel has passed the 1000 subscriber mark. So thank you very much. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking the videos. Thank you for sharing the videos with your friends and family. Thank you for your comments. I love reading your comments, guys. Thank you so much. So keep watching, keep supporting the channel, and I love you guys so much. So let's go inside the truck and confirm the customer's complaint. All right, we're gonna confirm the customer's complaint. I'm gonna start the truck. So the truck is running. I don't know if you can tell, but the truck is definitely shaking. And as you can see, the check engine light remained on. Let me zoom you guys in. So right there, the service engine soon light remained on. So customer's complaint confirmed. So now I'm gonna connect the scan tool to the truck so we can see what kind of trouble codes we have in memory. So I'll get the scan tool connected and bring you guys back up. Alright, so we have two trouble codes in memory, and here are the trouble codes. P0200, injector circuit problem. And the second one is P0300, engine misfire detected. I'm gonna focus on this first trouble code first, this P0200, because I believe if we have an injector that's not firing, this injector, or I don't know, maybe we have a couple injectors that are not firing, but let's just assume it's one injector that's not firing. If one injector is not firing, that specific injector can also cause this trouble code to be set. Okay, and I believe if we fix this issue, this injector circuit problem code, if we fix this code, it will also take care of this other code. So usually when I have a trouble code in memory like this, my next step is usually, looking up the code setting criteria, knowing what sets the code, and then I'll go from there. But this code is really basic and very straightforward. An injector circuit has got two wires. These electronic injectors have two wires going to them. One of them is going to have a power feed. It's going to be a constant power as the engine is cranking or while the engine is running. One is going to have power, and then the other wire is going to be the control wire coming from the engine computer. So the other one will have ground. So there's a transistor inside the computer that sends ground on the control wire to turn on the injector, which is going to eventually spray fuel inside the cylinder. Okay, so now we need to find out what cylinder is misfiring. Okay, because this P0300 is basically a random multiple cylinder misfire. So we have to pinpoint the cylinder. Hopefully we can pinpoint it, and then that will give us a cylinder we're gonna go after. So now the next step I want to make is I want to look at some live data. Let's look at some data and see what cylinder is misfiring. So let's back out of here and go to data. Right here, data display. And let's look at some misfire data. So just by looking at this, as you can see, cylinder number 2 has got a history count of 392. But it's really shaking. I don't know if you can see the camera shake. So it looks like cylinder 2 is misfiring, so cylinder 6 is misfiring, and cylinder number 2, so 2 and 6 are misfiring. All right, now are they both misfiring, or is this just one that's misfiring and it's causing the other one to misfire as well as their companion cylinders? So that's to be determined. So cylinder number 2 is misfiring and cylinder number 6 is also misfiring. So now I'm gonna turn off the truck and let's back out of here, and actually let's hit the home tab and go to the guided component tests. Let's look at the firing order of this truck. So this is a 5.3 liter, and let's see where cylinder number 6 and number 2 is. So let's go to engine. Let's go to ignition test. We might have the firing order here. So right here, here's the firing order. So cylinder number 2 is the first cylinder on the passenger side bank. So this bank that's on the passenger side is, so the first cylinder here is cylinder 2, and then the second one is cylinder 4, and the third one is cylinder 6. All right, so we know cylinder 2 and 6 are misfiring. So we're gonna test these 2 cylinders and see if we have spark or fuel or compression, because usually a misfire is caused by, you know, lack of spark, lack of fuel, a mechanical problem. But knowing that we have a code P0200 which says injector circuit problem, I'm gonna check the injector circuit on these 2 cylinders, cylinder 2 and cylinder 6. So I'm just gonna show you the trouble codes again. So these are the trouble codes we have, P0200 and P0300. So let's go under the hood and check the injector circuit of the cylinder number 2, so the second cylinder, and the 6th cylinder, so cylinder number 2 and cylinder number 6. Let's start there. We should have power, constant power on one wire, and then a ground that's going to be switched by the computer on the other wire. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing on the second cylinder. So let's go under the hood and check the wiring of the injectors on cylinder number 6 and number 2. All right, so we are under the hood and we are on the passenger side right now. The first cylinder here is cylinder number 2, and then here is cylinder number 6. Cylinder number 6 is this cylinder right here. So let's stay low tech first before we put out the big guns. I don't know if we're gonna need the big guns or not. So we're gonna disconnect. This is the injector right here. And remember, we had a code, the P0200 code, injector circuit fault. So I'm going to disconnect the electrical connector of this injector. So we're gonna disconnect injector number 2 and injector number 6, which is this one over here. And then we're gonna use a noid light. I will show you the noid light. We're gonna connect a noid light across the electrical connector. We'll start the truck, and the noid light should actually flicker if we're having power and control at the electrical connector. I will get the electrical connector disconnected, and then we'll do that test. So there's a little locking tab here that you have to remove. You just push it down and then pull. So here it is. So and then you just, here is the electrical connector of the injector. So it's got 2 pins. So the injector is got 2 wires, like I said. I'm sorry if I'm being so repetitive. One pin should have power constantly with the key on or with the engine running. And then the other pin should be the ground wire coming from the computer. So this should be a switched ground, okay? So if you have a noid light, you can use a noid light and connect your noid light across this electrical connector. So I'll get a noid light and show you how to do it. I'm gonna use this little kit here that I haven't used in a while. This is a little kit of noid lights. So I guess this is gonna be a good excuse to use these lights. So this is basically just a, you know, tiny test light basically. So we're gonna use this to bypass the injector. Okay, so I'm sure this is the size we need. So let's close this. This is a pretty good kit to have. I got this one from Arbor Freight tool, baby. All right, so now what I need to do is I have to connect this noid light to the electrical connector of the injector. So I'm gonna install it right here. Okay, so now I'm gonna go inside the truck and start the truck. With the truck running, if we have power here and control, this noid light should flicker. So I'm gonna go inside the truck and start it. Alright guys, so the truck is running, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see, it's a little bright here, but the noid light is not flickering. Okay? So we either don't have power or ground at this electrical connector. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see right there. So I'm covering the noid light just to make it dark a little bit so you can see. So right there, the noid light is not flashing. So our problem is right here on this circuit. Remember, we had two misfiring cylinders, cylinder number 2 and cylinder number 6. So I'm gonna disconnect cylinder number 6 and I'm gonna connect the noid light across the electrical connector of the injector on cylinder number 6, and then we'll see if the noid light is gonna flicker. So I'm gonna disconnect this. I don't know if you can tell, after I disconnected the electrical connector of this injector, the engine RPM kind of dropped a little bit, which told me that this cylinder is most likely contributing to our engine performance. So now I'm gonna connect this noid light here. This is not easy to do when you're holding the camera on the other hand. So right there. So I don't know if you can tell, but right there. Can you tell the difference? The noid light is definitely flickering. You can see the noid light flickering, right? So we have control and power at this injector. So that's nice. Let's reconnect this injector. Let's reconnect this electrical connector here on the injector. So that's reconnected. Our problem is right over here. Okay, I left it unplugged because I know this injector is definitely not contributing to the engine's operation. So this injector is not being fired. That's why this cylinder not being fired, it's misfiring, so it's causing the other cylinder, which I believe is its companion cylinder, it's causing this cylinder to misfire as well. Alright, so now we gotta figure out what we're missing. Are we missing power or the control? So I know this green wire here is the control wire coming from the computer, okay? And then the other wire is the power feed, is the power supply. So I'm gonna connect my test light to battery ground first, and then I'll back probe this wire. So this here should be our constant power feed. So with my test light connected to battery ground, once I touch this, my test light should light, okay? So I'm gonna back probe this, and then let's test this wire to see if we have power at this wire. I have my test light connected to battery ground, so if there's power on this wire, once I touch it, the test light should light. And as you can see, the test light did not light, okay? So now let's check the control wire. I'm gonna switch my test light to battery power, okay? We're gonna switch the test light to battery positive. So now I'm gonna switch my back probe tool to this green wire, I'm gonna back probe the green wire. Okay, so now I'm gonna switch my test lights to battery positive. So I have my test light connected to battery positive. I'm gonna attach this. I don't know if you can tell, but the test light is definitely flickering. Let me zoom you guys in so you can see. Let me turn off this light. There's too much light here. I'm gonna turn this off. So right there. So I had to turn off all these lights. And as you can see, my test light is flickering. Okay? So right there, we definitely have control at this electrical connector. So we have control here. So there's control on this wire, but there's no power feed. Okay? We don't have a power feed. Now, if you want to see one cool thing, now that we know that we don't have any power feed there, let me turn the lights on. Okay? So we know we have control here, but there's no power feed. So actually, what I could do, actually let me zoom you guys out a little bit so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Alright, so I'm gonna reconnect this electrical connector of the injector. So I'm gonna back probe this. Okay. Okay, so we have an open on this wire. So the power feed to the injector is open. Okay, so what I could do is I can send power straight to this injector. This truck is gonna run better. So let's just follow the wiring harness here. And so this looks like a pink wire. Looks like a pink wire, so I think it's this wire here. Okay, I think it's this wire. But since we know it's the power feed, we don't have to check this with the engine running. It's just the power feed that's open. I'm gonna turn off the truck, and then what we need to do, basically from this point going to the computer, from this point all the way up to the computer, we have to see and check and find out where our open is. I will turn off the truck and leave the key on so we can check this wire to see where our open is. So I'll do that. Alright, we're gonna remove this wire loom. I hope our open is not somewhere behind the engine. So what you need to do is you need to look at your contact points, okay? Any points of contact, that's usually where your open is gonna be. You know, anywhere where the harness is either touching the head or the block. So we have a couple contact points here. There's one contact point here. There's another, I hope you can see, there's another contact point. There's one here. There's another one over there. So I have the key on, and we know that the wire that's open is our power feed to the injector. Okay, so I'm gonna use this piercing tool, and I know this wire is, our wire is either this one or this one, because it looks like a pink wire. Okay, so does it look the same to you? These, I mean, one of these, it's either this one, this wire, does it look like this wire or this one? So we're just gonna test both of them anyways. I mean, I can still look at the wiring diagram, but sometimes you just need to use common sense a little bit. So we have power here on this wire. Okay. So let's test the other wire. So there's also power on this wire. So we have power on these two wires. So our open, this is gonna be stupid. Our open is basically somewhere between this point and up here. Because on this whole wiring harness, these two are the only two wires that look like the wire over here. So let's strip down the whole wiring harness. So I'm sorry if my light is in the way. Okay, so I'm gonna, I don't know if you can even see what I'm doing. So I'm gonna unclip this. Here's a whole wiring harness. And let's undo this and see if we can find our open. Oh, hold on. Guess what? Check this out. This thing is completely broken. What the heck? It looks like someone cut it. So right here, open, open. But how did it break though? That's interesting. There's your problem, lady. Okay, well, let's use some shrink butt connectors here to connect these two wires together. There is the problem, guys. Easy peasy. I'm sure once we connect these two wires together, this engine is gonna run better. So I'm kind of curious about what happened. Like, someone came in here and just cut the wire? That's weird. All right, so I'm gonna fix this wire really quickly and then we will connect it and see what happens. So I will fix the wire. Actually, I can show you guys, I can show you what I'm gonna do here anyways. I don't have to fix it and then bring you guys back up. I'll go grab a shrink butt connector and then we'll fix this wire. All right, so here we are. I'm gonna use this blue shrink butt connector here. Let's strip down this wire. Okay. All right. Strip down. Let's do the same thing on this one here. All right, so I don't know if you guys can see, but I did strip this wire down. Now we're gonna use this butt connector here. Okay, I mean, you can solder this if you want. I've used these butt connectors so many times and they work just fine. But if you feel like soldering it, you can. But I'm not soldering this one today. Okay. So don't go crazy in the comments about how I didn't solder these two wires together. You can if you want, but I'm not doing it on this one. If I just use this shrink. Shrimp. I can't talk, guys. If I just use these shrink butt connectors, it is going to be fine. Alright, so now we're gonna use this cigarette lighter and shrink this baby up. There she is. So actually, before we connect the electrical connector back on, let's connect our noid light to the electrical connector. And I'm gonna go start the truck to see if our noid light is gonna flicker now. It will, but let's just double check before we connect the electrical connector back up. Alright, so our light is flickering. Let me turn off these lights. Hopefully you can see. So right there. So our light is flickering now. So we are good to go. So now I'm gonna disconnect the noid light and I will connect the injector. Okay, so our noid light is flickering on cylinder number 2 now, and it was also flickering on cylinder number 6. So now what do we do? I mean, you don't have to do it this way. You can go back inside the truck, turn it off, and then connect the electrical connector, but you know, that's gonna be fine. It's not gonna damage the injector or anything. Alright, so now that we fixed this wire, we reconnected the electrical connector of the injector. So what's next? Well, the next step is going back inside the truck, turning off the truck, and then erasing the trouble codes. And then we're gonna check out our misfire counters to see if this truck is gonna stop misfiring. I mean, it already runs better. It doesn't misfire anymore. So we fixed it, guys. Let's go back inside the truck and do some last checks before we wrap up this video. Alright, so we are back here inside the truck and we still have our 2 trouble codes right here in memory. So let's back out of here and erase them. So let's clear the codes. Okay, our codes are cleared. Alright, so now let's start the truck. So now let's look at the check engine light first. So as you can see, the check engine light is no longer on. So now let's look at the data. Let's back out of here and go to data display. So let's go to misfire data. So now what we want to see is, we don't want to see cylinder number 2 and cylinder 6 counting. Okay, and as you can see right there, cylinder number 2 kind of counted just a little bit. So 2 and then 6. Okay, so right there, I mean, there was a 2 here. I just saw a 2 there, but it just went back to 0. So the engine is not misfiring anymore. We have 0, 0 here. Cylinder number 2 and number 6 are no longer counting. The misfire is gone. The engine runs good. We don't have a check engine light on the dash. So this is awesome. So let's back out of here. Actually, we don't have to back out of here. I'm just gonna turn off the truck so we can wrap up this video. So as you can see, our misfire is gone. So I'm gonna turn off the truck. Actually, before I turn off the scan tool here, before we wrap up this video, there's one thing I want to show you in case what I just explained didn't make sense. I hope it did, but in case you didn't, you have questions about what I did, I'm gonna explain it to you right now. So let's look at service information. We're gonna look at the wiring diagram, and then I will show you on the wiring diagram what I just did. So this is a Chevy Silverado. This is a 1500. Okay, so here is the engine performance wiring diagram of this engine. This is the first page of 5 different pages. As you can see, we have our injectors here. So the cylinder that was misfiring was cylinder 2. So cylinder 2 and 6 were misfiring, but our problem was on cylinder number 2. So the injector on cylinder number 2 wasn't receiving the power feed. All right, so an injector is a solenoid. Like any other solenoid, you need power and ground to energize it, to make it work. So we had ground or control on this wire, but we didn't have power on this leg of the circuit. Well, how did we know that? Well, we knew that by using a noid light. We used a noid light across these 2 wires. As we did that, our noid light did not flash. But when we took it to cylinder number 6, our noid light was flashing. So which told me that the circuit on this injector was good. So this injector was receiving power and ground coming from the computer. So we came back here, then we used a test light. We used a test light first connected to battery ground. We touched this pink wire, our test light didn't light. We know that this wire here was going to be a full power coming from a fuse somewhere under the hood with the engine running, or even with the key on. So we switched our test light to battery positive, and when we touched the green wire, our test light was flickering. So that told me that this side of the circuit was good, okay? So what happens with these injectors, just a little bit of, operational theory here, just how these things work. You have power and ground. It's a solenoid. When there's power coming through this wire, then it goes through the winding of the solenoid, okay, and then it comes out of the injector. So the winding of the injector, power travels through the winding and then it goes out. Once this wire here gets a ground, the solenoid is energized. It energizes the injector, which eventually opens to allow fuel to be sprayed inside the cylinder. Okay, so if we follow this wire, I know this one goes to the computer because this is the control, the ground coming from the transistor inside the computer. If we follow this wire, we'll see that this wire actually goes to a fuse. Let's see if we can follow it. Remember, it's this wire over here. Let's keep following it. Let's keep following it. This wire over here, I hope you didn't lose it, is this guy. And I'm sure it's going up to a fuse. So right over here. So all these pink wires, I'm sure most of them are going to the injectors or the coils. And as you can see, these ones are fed power by this fuse. And then the other ones are fed power by this fuse. So open power supply wire to the injector, okay? And remember, an injector's got 2 wires, a power feed and a control wire. So we had the control, we didn't have power from the power feed wire. So that's all, guys. I'm gonna leave it right over here. Let me start it again. As you can see, the truck runs good. Let's turn it off. Let's go back under the hood and then I'll show you something before I wrap up this video. Alright guys, so we're back here under the hood. Before we wrap up this video, I just want to show you again what we did. We fixed this wire which was open. I'm gonna put everything back together. I know we pierced these 2 wires. I'm gonna use some liquid tape to fix these 2 tiny holes we put here. You can't really see them, but I'm just gonna put some liquid tape over these 2 wires. And then I'll get some wire loom and some electric tape and tape these up really well. And this truck should be back to the customer. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked this video. If you do, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumb down. If this is your first time here, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Ring the bell so you can get notified every time I upload a new video. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.